thought, momming, parenting is hard, and there is no instruction book. And I was just seeing how things were for myself as a teen, friends, and just knew this was kind of where I wanted to land. And so I've been coaching now for 6 years and with teens and tween girls, and then that simultaneously just leads right into their mamas as well, just to be supporting and encouraging and empowering, like, all the way around.
So you coach girls?
I do.
Okay, but we're not talking about sports.
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Okay.
This is specifically life coaching. And so I come alongside girls that are just kind of stuck in a multitude of different ways.
This is The Real Deal, where real estate meets real life. Whether you're a seasoned real estate expert, a first-time home buyer, or if you're simply passionate about hearing small business stories, this is the podcast for you. Join us as we dive deep into the world of real estate and beyond.
Today's sponsor is Stacey Williams with Bright Mortgage. Stacey is the best lender in all of Arizona. Reach out to Stacey for all your lending needs. He is the best at finding you not only the best rate, the best loan program, but he also provides the best service. Welcome to episode 48 of The Real Deal, where real estate meets real life. I am your host, Janine Igliani, with my co-host, Ryan Hatcher.
What's up, guys?
And our guest today, this is going to be really good if you yourself are a young teen girl, you have teenagers, you have a daughter, you're a mom. I think this is going to be a great episode for you. So Megan with Connecting Hope Coaching, we are so excited to have you.
Hi, me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be really fun. And I think it's going to be a really relevant episode, because what we're going to talk about and what you kind of specialize in is something that we've really seen an uptick in with our young girls. And I think it'll just be really good. So welcome. Will you, like I said, we like to start at the beginning. Will you tell us about yourself, where you're from, how you got here, and what you do and why you do what you do?
Yes, of course. So I actually am originally from Michigan. I moved out here to the desert about 8 years ago now, and have been in Queen Creek ever since. We moved out here for my husband's job. I am a mom of 6 kiddos, ranging from 21 down to my youngest is 8. And yeah, I just have always had a passion for helping. I'm a helper at heart. And after being home with the kids for quite a while as a stay-at-home mom, I was like, I really need to kind of get back out there and just add a little bit more on purpose. And so I sought out coaching. I had been thinking about, therapy and counseling and things like that, and it just didn't seem like a fit. It was too formal. It was too much into some diagnoses and things like that. And I have always been more of a forward motion kind of a gal. And so I thought, momming, parenting is hard, and there is no instruction book. And I was just seeing how things were for myself as a teen, friends, and just knew this was kind of where I wanted to land. And so I've been coaching now for 6 years with teens and tween girls, and then that simultaneously just leads right into their mamas as well, just to be supporting and encouraging and empowering, like, all the way around.
So you coach girls?
I do.
Okay, but we're not talking about sports.
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Okay.
This is specifically life coaching. And so I come alongside girls that are just kind of stuck in a multitude of different ways. Maybe they're having trouble getting along with siblings. Maybe it is having trouble with friend groups and things like that. Parents are coming to me saying, she's just a little bit down, a little bit more quiet. I'm not too sure what to do here. Nothing crazy has happened, but this is where we're at, and I'm not sure. And so that's where we're able to kind of meet together, see what's really happening here, and make a plan and move forward. Coaching is really about partnership with the client. And it's client-centered. So it's, what do you have for a goal that you would like to improve on where you're at? And then we go after exactly that.
So the client is specifically the daughter, the girl.
It depends.
Okay.
Sometimes it is the child,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's the mom. Sometimes I'm coaching both of them together. There's a rub within their relationship, and sitting down together with a mutual goal allows a huge outcome to come there.
So what's it take to become a coach if somebody wants to do this? Like, what did you have to do?
I went to coaching school,
Really? Okay.
yes, and got
What's that look like?
certified as a professional coach. I think the program was a little over a year, and just developed all the different coaching skills that you're needing to be able to be certified.
How did you settle into your niche? Because you have a niche.
I do. As a teen, I struggled with people pleasing, with using my voice and confidence. And I really it just was on my heart and weighed really heavy. I know lots of girlfriends struggled with that as well. And lots of tools that I learned throughout life, and then definitely within the coaching program, I was like, this is where it's at. Like empowering young women to stand in their voice, to be confident and have that assurance of their core self, so that the world isn't kind of dictating limitations or who they are, but really being able to be fully their authentic self and go after those dreams.
I love that, especially as a mom of daughters, and knowing just the struggles that they face and having someone that they can use as a resource, bounce ideas off of, but also like encourage them. One thing that you do that I think is really cool, that's probably even makes it more comfortable for these young girls, is that you do it over Zoom, right? So they can, you want to talk about that?
I do. It's kind of been the way of life for quite a while with everything that's kind of happened in the world, but it opens up actually in this arena so much more. So when I'm coaching, I can coach anyone throughout the country, actually the world. And it's a sweet spot in my teen groups that you can have a girl in Minnesota, in California, in Florida, all on a call together and realizing like, oh, wait a minute, like you too? Like, I thought it was just me. And it's really life-changing when they realize like this is just kind of how things are. It's not just you.
I'm not the only one going through this.
Exactly.
And then they're also in the comfort of their own home. They can, like you said earlier, have a blanket or maybe a snack, and they're so used to being behind a screen that it probably helps them to feel even more comfortable and open up versus if they were to come and have like a more formal or more traditional face-to-face meeting. So I think that's really cool. Can you talk to us about what are some of the challenges that our young teenage women are facing?
Oh, goodness. Well, there's just so many.
Yeah, I'm sure.
With social media.
What are some of the big ones?
Yeah, with social media, a huge challenge is just really knowing what is reality and what isn't. Just having these expectations that aren't actually real. Just last week, there was yet another client of mine who was like, perfect isn't a real thing. Like, I'm spinning my wheels, I'm exhausted, and there was a lot of emotion that was coming from that. And that is a huge sense that's out there. And just as much as we have all this openness with social media, it actually is very isolating. And so there's a lot of hiding behind that. And so that's been one of the biggest things that I've seen with the girls. Struggling in friend groups, feeling alone, unrealistic expectations, and that overall mental health and self-confidence is just kind of plummeting.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Ryan. Do you think that stems from social media? Where do you think that stems from?
I do. I also think it's the culture of busy. Faster is better, more on our plates, and we're kind of losing touch a little bit instead of leaning in. And I think that's overall.
Do you work with young men as well, or just young women?
I do not, just with young teen girls.
So I work with young men 15 to 18 typically, and I would bet that many of the issues that the young women are facing are similar to the young men, mostly.
Yeah.
At least when it comes to social media.
Yeah.
It is hard for our young girls it's hard for me, I'm a grown woman, to stay up to date with social media, to feel like I'm presenting a presentable face out there, right? Like, who wants to show up looking grungy and gross, right? Like, but that's how I look sometimes, you know? In fact, I kind of love when they do some of those challenges of like, let's see what you really look like. But also we tend to put our highlight reel out there and only show the best parts and not the struggles. And yet we all have struggles. And I think as a young girl, that's something that you don't realize. You think, like you said earlier, I'm the only one feeling this way. I'm the only one experiencing this. And it's so ironic that social media was supposed to make us feel more connected, right? And in a lot of ways it has, but in a lot of ways we actually feel a lot more alone because we are missing that face-to-face, that in-person connection with people. And behind a screen, there is an element of disconnect. That's really hard.
Yeah. And it's very similar thing that like moms are experiencing as well, seeing those highlight reels of like, well, this person's 15-year-old daughter is doing this and this and this and this, and that comparison tends to creep in and like, well, my daughter's not doing that. And so it opens up kind of a beautiful conversation of like, well, where is your daughter at? Like, who is your daughter? You know, this person's daughter might want to be in cheerleading and this and that and is very extroverted, and your daughter might not be an extrovert, more introverted. And so how can we parent the child we have in front of us, right?
What do they say?
And how can we lean into that and build up that in your daughter?
Comparison is the thief of joy.
So can we talk about that mother-daughter relationship and some of those dynamics and maybe even some like best practices on both sides?
Yeah, so
I'm going to take notes.
That is one of the most interesting relationships of the mother and daughter relationship. And oftentimes I'm seeing that it's just a communication barrier, that things are more assumed or not said as clearly. And so really getting the two together and saying, what is the overall goal here and here for both of you has been just a really beautiful, sweet spot to see where everybody's coming from. Sometimes a no sounds like this most awful, horrible, horrific thing to a young girl, right? But understanding the why behind it. And sometimes as we're parenting, we're just not putting all the single pieces together. But when she's able to understand mama's heart of why it's a no here, that really shifts things.
Do you find that, we were just talking about this earlier today, that frustration often comes from unmet expectations. And so sometimes I think as parents, we have these expectations that we put on our kids and vice versa. And when those expectations aren't met, it can lead to frustration. I know I'm an oldest child, and I find that I was extra hard on my oldest child. And I think it's just because that's who I was. And so you kind of, project, right? Like what you had on you. And so that was like a difficult relationship for her going through her high school years. And now being on the other side, I can recognize that, right? And now I show up, I think, a little bit better for my second daughter, my poor second daughter, my poor first child, right? They're always the guinea pigs, but that's hard when you have those expectations, or I would say maybe even like a little bit of a perfectionism, but there are kids and they're not perfect either.
And in the teen and tween years, that's where a whole little like dance begins, right? As you're starting to kind of release a little bit more to them in independence and responsibility. And it's a dance of like, well, where do I lean into that? Where do I pull back with that? Like, what do I even do here? And it can get really tricky as far as that goes.
For sure. And like you said, there's no parenting book for each specific child because they're each different. And oh, yes, that's the hardest thing. Like, I'm a rule follower, so I'm like, just give me the book and tell me what to do, and I'll do it. But there isn't one that's, so yeah. We're learning as we go.
And there's nothing like parenting teens to also like tap into some of our own stuff that we're carrying around.
Oh, right.
As they're not needing us anymore, what does that mean for me? And some of those kinds of things. So those are most of the conversations I'm kind of having with moms and things like that.
Let's talk about our girls and if they're feeling anxious, depressed, because we hear that a lot. And the numbers are telling us that those emotions have really increased as of lately. What are some tools that you use with your girls to help them with those issues?
Some of the very basic things that we start off in our coaching relationship is really identifying what our core values are. Because when we're living outside of alignment of those, it feels just like a bike tire that's kind of, got a broken spoke and poking around there. So we lean into that first. Then we also focus on different breathing techniques and grounding techniques to really just hone into the present, because that's oftentimes the biggest culprit as far as that goes.
What do you mean by grounding?
A bunch of different things, like naming 5 things that are blue, naming, bringing you right here into the present moment with all the different senses. It snaps you out of your thought loop that can send you right down a rabbit hole and kind of keep you there. And the more you're down into that rabbit hole, the longer you spin, and the bigger those emotions of anxiety and worry and all of that increase.
Do you have any really cool success stories that you can share? Where you've been able to help somebody?
Well, yeah, so many. Of recent, I've been working with a young lady that had just kind of gone into her shell, if you will. There was some things happened with friends and peer groups, and it just really impacted her and kind of left her in this stuck place. So much so that she had kind of come out of public school, was doing some homeschooling, and just kind of wrestling with some of those kinds of things. And through the work that we've been doing, increasing her voice, increasing her self-confidence and things like that, she actually just started back in public school for the beginning of her high school career. Oh, and great. She is thrilled. She's so thrilled. She's already gone to the first dance even, and really leaning into making friends and getting out there and being her authentic self. So that's been pretty awesome to watch and see. Yeah. She's really grown a lot.
It's so hard for our young girls and our boys too, that they're growing, right? And so there's just physical changes that they're dealing with, body, hormones, just all of that stuff. And then they have this natural desire that we all have to want to fit in. So trying to navigate that. One of the things I've said to my kids is that nobody else is thinking about you as much as you're thinking about you, right? They're thinking about themselves. So we're so worried of, what is this person going to think of me? They're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves, and just helping them learn those tools, those coping skills. But to your point earlier about being a parent, one of the hardest things I think is that we can't do it for them. Right. They have to walk it. Right. Sometimes they're going to walk hard stuff, and that's okay. Just my kids started school today, and my son was nervous and was having those feelings. And it was I was telling my daughter, it's hard as a parent, but he has to go through it. I can't save him from it. And if anything, it'll actually develop character, because he'll go to school, he'll realize it really wasn't that bad. I actually had fun. And now he has developed this strength muscle of being able to say, I can do hard things. Even when I feel scared or nervous, it's going to be okay on the other side. That's hard as a parent though. Yes. Sometimes they have to fail, they have to fall, or they have to go through hard stuff. It'll develop their character.
And that's kind of the biggest thing too, that the kids are trying to avoid feeling certain feelings.
Yes.
And that's just impossible to do. It ends up showing up as something else, right? And so really understanding that the feelings are only for a moment, that throughout the day or even by 10 a.m., you've already felt a multitude of different feelings. Yeah. Feelings are fleeting. They don't last forever. So it's okay to kind of sit in it for a moment.
I love that it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel that way. I love that.
And we don't have to just feel sad. We might be sad and nervous or happy. I mean, there's so many things you can feel all at the same time. It doesn't have to be just one. We don't have to pick one.
Totally. And we don't, I love that. My son, he was, again, having some nerves. And I'm I think part of it, buddy, is excitement too, don't you think? You're gonna, and I was almost trying to help him reframe a little bit of that. Yes. That was this is a little side note. My degree is in communication, and that was one of our techniques that we learned, that if you are going to go speak and you maybe feel nervous, reframing it of no, this is excitement. I'm excited. That's what I'm feeling. And it helps I'm not nervous. I'm excited.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
So do you work for a company, or do you own your own company?
My own company, Connecting Home Coaching.
Okay, cool. So let's say a mom or dad's listening to this and they're like, hey, I'm struggling right now to connect with my daughter, or they're struggling, right? What do they need to do?
Just reach out.
Okay.
We start with a conversation, see what's going on, make sure it's a good fit. There are definitely situations where I would be referring out that it would be something that was needing more of a therapeutic environment. But other than
What
that,
would those types of things look like?
if there's something
Like abuse or something?
Yes, but if there's even something that's just been very profound and traumatic, that would probably need to go and actually work through what actually happened there.
Right. And
in
release
coaching,
the trauma somehow?
Correct.
Okay.
In coaching, it's much more forward and future motion.
Gotcha.
Do we look back and see, hey, when was a time that you were scared and everything worked out okay? We'll look back for reference, but it's mostly looking at where we are today and where we want to go.
That makes sense.
So, yeah, and then we just open up that conversation, and then I always love to be able to have the parent and the child on a Zoom meeting together so that we make sure we're all on the same page. They're meeting the lady on the other side of the screen together, and that we know that this is going to be child-driven, and that we're establishing goals so that everyone understands, like, where this is going.
So you
together.
meet with the parent and the child together, then the child, and then you have
Correct.
group calls too.
Sometimes yes.
Okay.
Sometimes yes.
Yeah.
There's definitely updates and things like that I can send to the parent on not specifics, but overall how things are going, where it's going, and those kinds of things. And then we have our group starting also in the fall, and so for those that looks a little bit different. We all meet together at the same time and kind of go through the content. And
Can you maybe talk about who would be a good candidate for the group coaching and who would be a good candidate for one-on-one?
so for my kiddos that really aren't wanting to open up with a whole bunch of people, then group is not for them. Sometimes we need to do a little bit of work ahead of that and then move into the group situation. Group is awesome for any kiddo that's just wanting to be empowered, to build their own self-confidence, have a good, strong base. We go over boundaries and communication and self-compassion and some of those foundational tools that they'll carry with them throughout their lifetime. And then we do some coaching around that. Each girl gets, an opportunity to be coached on that content that we have for the day.
And do you coach moms too?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? Like, what does that look like for moms?
Same. I have individual sessions for moms, and then we're launching also a moms group called Moms Empowered to Thrive, specifically for tween and teenage moms, so that they have a community. Like, it's that awkward age for parents and kiddos as they're just all changing and growing in so many ways. Parenting really takes a big shift at that age.
Yeah, it
and
does.
so feeling like you are connected to people going through the same kinds of things, handing off those keys as they're driving off for the first time, all of those different things.
I know that well, yeah. I think
Yeah.
there's such a, shame or stigma around being honest about our struggles as parents. Yeah. That maybe your kid isn't this perfect kid and they're struggling and they're navigating things, and we don't share that enough. And so that group environment could be really helpful in those scenarios, and being able to be like, okay, I'm not the only one that's struggling, right? There's others that are out there, and we're actually dealing with really similar stuff. We just don't talk about it enough. And I think that comes back to wanting to only put out our highlight reel to others and feeling like embarrassed or shameful of what we're struggling with, but we're all struggling in different ways. Can you talk about, I really think one of the things, I think social media has really impacted this generation. It is almost like a way of life for them, right? And we've seen the consequences. It's kind of like, and I love this example. Back in the day, everybody smoked and they thought it was fine. And then after time, we came to learn, oh no, this actually is bad for you. There's actually like harmful consequences. I feel like we're kind of in that phase now when it comes to social media, that we thought it was all good and dandy and whatever, but now we're starting to see there's actually some harmful consequences. So can you talk about maybe some best practices around that?
I think in general, it's being able to figure out exactly what is your healthy time limit and really how is it impacting you, and being really honest with yourself about that. And then you as a parent not being afraid to have a boundary around that for your kiddo, you know? If you're choosing to not let them have social media, amazing. If you're choosing to let them only have one or so much time a day and things like that, and continuing to talk about what is the real impact on you for that. That's going to look different for each of us. We're all very individualized how we take in that kind of information. But the more any of us are on social media and on screens and things like that, we're just taking in way too much information that we can't actually process all of that. And so one of the great things I love to use with the girls is when they get into a thought process, well, I saw this and they did this over the weekend, blah, blah, you know, how true is that? Because it's really conjuring up different stories that we're creating for ourselves about the situation. And so that phrase has kind of been key. And it's interesting to see how oftentimes, you know, every coaching session that we're always leaving with action steps. So what's your focus going to be until our next session? And so many different times it does come up of like, well, I'm only going to limit myself to this much time on my screen. And really seeing a huge payoff when they are really limiting that. So
I love that. Yeah. So like I said, find out for each individual person what is a good, healthy habits around your social media use, and then sticking to that.
Yes,
and it's going to be different for everybody.
it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there other just good tips that you would say for teenagers? Like, is it lifestyle? Is it something as simple as like going for a walk every day? Are there anything like that that you would say, hey, these are just like good practices to have in your life?
Yes, I would definitely say quiet time, whatever that looks like, and how are you going to care best for yourself today? That might change every day, so not to be super rigid on that, but how are you caring well for yourself today? And then journaling. Journaling is just a huge place to just unload, and then also be able to have a spot to come back and be like, oh, I remember, oh, let me go, I got to read about that again. That is just two really simple things, but they're a huge impact.
I love that.
I've never been great at journaling, but I always admire the people that can go back to this date and say, this is what went down. I just think it's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oftentimes, and I don't know if this is for you, but oftentimes with journaling, I know with some of my clients, they're like, oh no. And I'm like, listen, you don't have to have a pretty notebook, the perfect pen. It doesn't have to even like be spelled right. It doesn't have to even form sentences. Just drop it all down. Just whatever that looks like for you. And that usually tends to help for my clients to not feel like it has to be a paper or something like that, you know.
I want to go back to the quiet time. What does that look like? What do you recommend?
So that'll look different for moms and for the girls. For the girls, usually it's in the morning, being able to just get up and have a minute. What do I have today? What do I need today? And kind of have that quiet start. And then the important piece is the end time, the end of the day, the reflection, the quieting it down, definitely putting the screens away, and that quiet time of just reflection and simmering the day right down.
I love that. I do that. These guys know it, but I love at the end of my day kind of looking at back and just writing down 3 things that went well today and 3 things that I want to go well tomorrow.
You do it every day?
I pretty much, yeah. And it is so great to just get it off of my mind, right? And just put it on paper. And then it's like, okay. And then I can also be proud of it. You know, sometimes it feels like, did I even accomplish anything today? But when you take a moment to reflect and you're like, actually, I did, right? I did this, this, and this. And that's really cool. Well, Megan, what didn't we ask you that we should have asked you?
Gosh, I don't know. You guys had great questions.
So tell us again, what's coming up in the fall?
So in the fall and then in January, the 2 times of the year that I launch my groups. It's the 3rd year of groups. And groups are for both the teens and for moms. So we have Girls Empowered to Thrive that I was kind of hinting at earlier, but where we're covering all the different topics of communication, boundaries, self-compassion, listening skills, some of those kinds of things. So that group is where I speak a little bit about a topic. We see how that's fitting into our life, where we want to go with that, and everybody's getting coached on that throughout that. It's amazing for strengthening a young girl with core skills that she will carry on with basically forever. We also will be having the Moms Empowered to Thrive, very similar kinds of topics, but as it pertains to moms and parenting the girls of that age group. So finding that community, it's kind of like a time for the mom to put her own oxygen mask on so she can best feel equipped in parenting with her daughter.
Awesome.
So I have to ask this.
Yeah.
I love that you focus on moms and girls. What do the dads need to know?
That's a great question. I wish I could open it up to parenting in general, but there's just kind of not enough of me to go around.
Sure. I'm just thinking, like, when you're talking to these girls, what impact do these dads need to make that maybe they're missing?
I would say the biggest thing for dads is to focus on her heart, to see her and to connect with her. If she is excited about Taylor Swift, then you are too, Daddy. Like, find a song and get on board. But to lean in and be very specific with what she is interested in. That makes such a big, huge, lasting impact. And that connected relationship will give her what she needs of her father.
Okay. Oh, I love that. Well, we love to end, and we'll also, just for everybody listening, we will link all your info so that they can find you, and if they want to connect with you, get in a group, whatever, we'll have all that linked. But we love to end on a little speed round. So are you up for our speed round of questions?
Sure.
All right, let's go. What's your favorite food?
Oh, Italian.
Oh, I love it. Like pasta, what is
Yes,
it? Anything?
pasta.
Anything?
Anything Italian,
Okay.
really, yeah. Pasta,
is there a
calamari.
little Italian in you or no?
There is.
Okay. Favorite drink?
LaCroix.
Oh.
Yep.
Do you have a favorite flavor?
The lemon lime.
Oh, that is good.
I like that one.
Okay. Favorite color?
Purple.
Oh, that's a good one. What about a favorite book?
Oh, one of my favorite books is Love Her Well by Carrie Kompakis. It talks about the mother-daughter relationship, and I just absolutely love that read. So it's a really good one for moms.
I'll have to get that. Do you have a favorite podcast?
Oh, I'm not really a listener of podcasts too much. So probably this one now.
Oh, yes, right?
Like, absolutely.
You know what's crazy? I never listened to podcasts before we started this. And now I listen to a lot more. I like the clips, the snippets. I don't like to sit there for 45 minutes most of the time, but I listen to them now because of this.
I love it.
Get on the train.
Okay, our last but not least question. Do you have a favorite vacation?
Oh, favorite vacation was probably the one we just took as a family. We went to Oceanside and Carlsbad, and
how fun.
we just had a lovely time just sitting on the ocean. There's something about just hearing those waves and just doing nothing, just like being together. So, yeah, that was my favorite.
Well, thank you, Megan, for being with us. We really appreciate it. Thanks for all that you share. I think it was really helpful, and hopefully you'll get some clients from this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to The Real Deal, where real estate meets real life. Make sure to follow or subscribe to the Home Selling Team on YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify to stay up to date with our podcast.